Industry 4.0 is going to fill up the gaps that will help that migration from that Industry 3.2 that I traditionally said we are into a true reality. There are a lot of this networking harmonization that needs to occur, and it's still happening at the smaller silos. But when the industry comes together, that's when things will be changing for good. We used to have that saying, and this is something that I heard a lot of times at Novo Nordisk. It's not about the race of speed. The best is not the first one. And the reality is that continuous manufacturing and other Industry 4.0 concepts is not about who's going to be first there. But the first one will drive everyone else behind to make it even better.
Welcome to the Smart Biotech Scientist. I'm your host, David Brullman. Today, we're diving into the digital revolution transforming biologics manufacturing with Tiago Matos, who is an Associate Director in Bioprocess, Drug Substance and Commercialization at Merck Co. With over a decade in the industry and an impressive portfolio of publications and patents, Tiago is leading the charge in implementing next-generation technologies that are reshaping how we develop and commercialize biologics. Ready to separate the hype from reality in Industry 4.0? Grab your coffee and notebook. It's time to take your bioprocessing game to the next level. Are you juggling the complexities of CMC development while trying to enjoy the beauty of biotech? Have you ever wondered if there's a way to simplify bioprocessing? Welcome to the Smart Biotech Scientist podcast, where we're diving headfirst into the very challenges you face. We're breaking it down, demystifying the jargon, and giving you the keys to unlock your full potential. I'm your host, David Brullman, and I get it. With 15 plus years in the biotech industry, I face the same challenges you do. There's a way to simplify and streamline so you can remove complexity, you can skip trials and errors, deliver without delay your groundbreaking therapy to clinics and market, and still enjoy every single step. Do you want to learn how industry experts and I did it? Grab a cup of coffee and your favorite notebook and pen. Now is the time to take your bioprocessing game to the next level. Let's smarten up biotech. Welcome, Tiago, to the Smart Biotech Scientist.
Thank you, David. I'm very excited and super happy to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure having you on. Tiago, share something that you believe about bioprocess development that most people disagree with.
I don't know if everyone disagrees with, but in the context of industrialization, I think the biopharmaceutical manufacturing lags behind many other industries. If we position this in the big framework of industry revolutions, being 2010, the landmark for Industry 4.0, that is going to be the key part of this conversation, we are still on that Industry 3.2 phase, which are leaving 3.0 from 1970s with computer revolution, with automation, and we are so far away from actually getting to that 4.0. And we are nowadays talking about Industry 5.0 with cognitive mindsets. We are really, really behind that kind of a landmark.
Yes, I agree. That's my observation, definitely. And I'm very much excited about our discussion about Industry 4.0. Before we explore the cutting edge of digital manufacturing, I'd love to hear about the spark that ignited your passion for biotech in the first place, and what drew you into the field, and how did your journey lead you from those initial interests to becoming a champion for digital innovation in biologics manufacturing?
Long story, but very touchy and very personal. When I was a little kid, I saw my mom with a lot of asthma attacks, with a lot of problems in my family. And it was like a part of my family that all of us had asthma. And I was one of them. And as a little kid looking into all of that, I had this touching curiosity, exactly why do we have this kind of bondage through part of the family where this genetic component of us that affects only part of us, and why this heart disease is so complicated. And back in the 80s and the 90s, the medicines for asthma didn't actually exist, or they were not actually as good as they are nowadays. So I grew up with this curiosity for the diseases itself and the genetic compound of this type of diseases. I knew early on that I wanted to be a biochemist because that was the connection of everything there, the immunology, genetic, and so on. And I grew up with that mindset. I went to biochemistry. I was super focused into a specific target of my career. And then around the fourth year of my university studies, and this is back to the bachelor years in Portugal, where it was like 5 years of bachelor and 2 years of master's, I had this mentor, this fantastic professor called João Queiroz, that took us all into this class, process engineering, took us all to this company called CPAN, that's now a Swan Pharma. And I entered that manufacturing site, and it was like a massive filters and tubings all over the place. Everything like so amazing. I was so excited about it that I was like, okay, I changed my mind. I love processing now. He became my advisor during my bachelor, my master's. He co-advised my PhD program. During my PhD, there was an opportunity to go to Sweden, core of bioprocessing. Lund University was heavily known for as well a lot of chromatography development. So I had that opportunity to go to the applied biochemistry department with Leif Pulo, where I was introduced to a lot of collaborations with the back then G Healthcare, now Cytiva. We tested a lot of just new resins that were so cool. They were called the multimodal resins. It was like prototypes and so on. It was so exciting. Every single step of it was like molecules are different, the resins are different. Let's make different operations here. Let's make a curiosity field out of this. And then when I was about to finish my PhD, I really wanted to stay in academia. I was really passionate about it, that freedom of research, well, teaching. I'm still passionate about teaching, and I still collaborate with UDEL University on that aspect. I was fished by Novo Nordisk by the end of my PhD, and I had an experience for a year at Novo Nordisk. But back then, Novo Nordisk wasn't the Novo Nordisk we know today. There was a lot of like firing strike, and it wasn't as stable as it is in the early phase development. So by the end of my first year, the department was shrunk down. I was offered a postdoc by the company itself to actually come to Steve Kramer's lab. And I was afraid of it. Steve Kramer is a big name, is a genius person. So I was like, I'm going to give my best. I mean, if I can survive Steve Kramer's excellency, I can be someone in this career. It was a fascinating experience because as a biochemist in the middle of chemical engineers with a very different mindset when you actually how to do chromatography and science itself. But then I was introduced to actually molecular models. So it's to mystic understanding of how proteins actually interact with the ligand itself. Work from Sofia Karkov, Julie Robinson, they were like amazing. And I was so fascinated with this. So everything kept building up into that curiosity of a little child trying to understand how things work. By my end of my postdoc, Novo Nordisk didn't have any position for me because, again, there wasn't the best times for them. And Merck had a really perfect opportunity for me in the vaccines process development space. And I thought, why not? I work with plasmids, with enzymes, with bispecific antibodies. I think it's time for vaccines now, VLPs and all the massive particles. And that's when I started to continue my evolution or evolving into this field. Later, there was an opportunity for the late stage process development. And I've been on this fascinating route. It's like, where is the technology being blocked? It's like a lot of cool things that happen in the early phase in the discovery and then gets to the manufacturing. Where is the blockage? And I was curious about it. So I had this opportunity to come to late stage process development, supporting the implementation of continuous process in the late stage environment, not at manufacturing, but at small scale. And I tried to connect all of this together and bring people together to actually, okay, let's mature the technology so we can receive new pipelines into continuous process and so on. And here I am, connected, surrounded by amazing people that help bring things together. And in a much more conservative than early phase type of development, we try to bring these new technologies into place, into maturity level.
Yeah, I love how you connect purpose with your curiosity, and then, the whole process is not very linear, but many stories of us, we start somewhere and we end up at a different place, and along the way, it's very exciting. So let's face the topic or the elephant in the room right from the beginning. I would love your honest assessment. What is the state of the industry 4.0 in biopharmaceuticals? Is it a hype? Is it fully developed? We're totally behind. There's some potential, or what is your answer to that?
We are definitely behind it, but I don't think it's a hype. If we try to picture this into how things actually evolve in the other manufacturing industry, imagining the 1700s or 1800s when the industry 0.1 and 2.0 and so on became reality, they didn't landmark like the completely transformation process. It was the introduction itself. In the 1970s, when the computers show up, we didn't immediately have automation in place. We didn't have like super software to actually do the work for us or anything. And I think Industry 4.0 is on that perspective. In 2010, we had that landmark. Yes, this is where cyber physical systems and Internet of Things, networks, that became a reality. Okay, we have concepts. We have harmonization of the industry to understand where we have to go. Industry 4.0 biopharmaceutical concept is the aim. We have been working for years now in continuous manufacturing. Some small molecules have been already developed in a continuous process. When it comes to large molecules, we are still very far out from it. And the reality is that we are still trying to operate in that fed batch concept from the 70s with a little bit more automation. So it become this more polished, detailed automation concepts. And we are trying to connect things in a very kind of labor manner. Industry 4.0 is going to fill up the gaps that will help that migration from that Industry 3.2 that I traditionally said we are into a true reality. There are a lot of this networking, harmonization that needs to occur, and is still happening at the smaller silos. But when the industry comes together, that's when things will be changing for good. We used to have that saying, and this is something that I heard a lot of times at Novo Nordisk. It's not about the race of speed. The best is not the first one. And the reality is that continuous manufacturing and other Industry 4.0 concepts is not about who's going to be first there. But the first one will drive everyone else behind to make it even better. And we need to create that organizational kind of harmonization. And I think collaborative efforts at the NIMBLE, at the Bioforum, and so on, they are actually helping the industry coming together. And that will be elemental to actually accelerate this transition. We have a lot of advantages of overall Industry 4.0. Everyone knows that. There's a common goal. But potentially what we imagine as Industry 4.0 today is not going to be the same as 10 years from now. We are learning, and we are now introducing AI, machine learning, and all of that is actually shaping what we imagined 10 years ago. So we are learning over knowledge, and every single piece we put together in this big story is going to be slightly different in 10 years from now.
Yeah, you're making a good point. We have now a lot of new technologies, and it's just arriving pretty much every day. We have new machine learning tools, we have language models, AI, digital technologies, digital twins, and so on. Where do you see the biggest advantages if we manage as an industry to leverage these tools well? Where do you see the biggest benefit in, let's focus on the manufacturing, because I think you're in the late stage in the area where you are. Where do you see the biggest potential?
Great point. The way we do nowadays, the commercialization aspect of things, the way we put a control strategy package of a pipeline program, the way we file, a lot of that will change with application of new models, of new in silico tools or machine learning. It is fundamental to understand that we have been designing processes in a very rigid manner. We have QBD concepts. We try to create design spaces that are robust enough to provide us a confidence on processing, but we do focus in a single operation unit at a time. I'm not trying to point this that continuous process is going to be the solution, but the continuous control strategy is going to be different. Even if you still operate in a fed batch operation mode, if you create in silico tools that allows you to create much broader design spaces and then connect all of that in end-to-end models with holistic control strategy in mind, you actually will be able to operate a much more flexible environment. If something changes on your bioreactor and you are outside your operation ranges that have been validated for your current process, what can you do later on that you don't have to dispose your bioreactor totally? Okay, can I correct this on a Pro A level or an AEX, on a CEX, whatever it comes after? I think that holistic control strategy is going to be a fundamental key change here. And connecting all of these new tools, basically more realistic mechanistic understanding of processes, better in silico models, but as well where we don't have actually analytical tools that provide you that real-time test release. Machine learning algorithms can actually give you that fundamental knowledge, can provide you the hint of what's happening. You still have that offline measurement if you have to for quality control. But providing that flexibility at manufacturing, a faster response, and creating that holistic big vision, I think that's going to be the biggest change coming up.
Now, I have maybe a bit of a controversial question, but I must say, I'm also a bit biased. I'm a big believer in digital twins and digital technologies, but I would love to hear your take, Tiago. Does it make sense to have digital twins in every scenario, or could it be that in certain cases, actually, it's overcomplicating the game?
I completely agree with that. It is not necessary to have digital twins everywhere. It's better to work digital twins where you have a platform, where you have a center goal of operation. So if you have a manufacturing that is being built with a digital capability that is a platform for the type of molecules you are operating on, having a digital twin pre-built for that will allow you to have that full transition from early on development to late stage in an accelerated timeline, as well as reducing the cost of that development itself. If you have different molecules, if you are, for example, in a design space for vaccines, they are always different. So every single operation is going to be quite different. It's going to be a big challenge and a big expense to build digital twins for everything. Digital twins are not cheap. Even in silico models are not cheap. So you need to choose exactly where you have that return of investment. It is a platform. If you have that platform, okay, you can make it happen. Even if you're close enough to a platform, like monoclonal antibodies are not a true platform. But if you have that concept of manufacturing platform in place, you change the resins, you change the types of filters, but the skids are there. So operate on that principle, and then you can recover most of that investment on the digital twin space.
And where do you see some common misconceptions regarding digital twins? Because, I mean, you hear it all over. Everybody is creating a digital twin. But what have you observed in the industry? What do people maybe wrongly believe about digital twins?
There's two bigger gaps in digital twin world. First of them, digital twins are not model. Like everyone that you see in conferences nowadays presenting mechanistic models for chromatography or filtration, they call that a digital twin. Digital twin is way beyond that. Digital twin concept starts with an automation, the process itself, analytical tools, and a model. All of that together are actually the true digital twin. Because you have that operation, the live reading, the automation control that you can actually change something into the operation based on your model prediction. So you can see immediately what's happening and then predict what consequences from the model and what do you need to change to adjust your process. So that's what a true digital twin is. That information with the simulator and then actually create that advanced process control. That is the next step of the current operation method. The second part is that digital twins are easy and cheap. They are not. They are incredibly expensive and time consuming. I just described what you need to have a digital twin. You need to have automation, analytical, process, and you need to have modeling. Just in the specific 4 buckets, you need already 4 different type of SMEs to help you bring this together. And then you pull all that together into a digital twin, you have to connect that to your automation and do testing and validation. And all of this is so much more complicated. You need to continue maturing it. And then if you have machine learning into it, you are actually maturing your model to make it even more applicable for your operation. So the route to apply this is time consuming, is expensive, and requires a lot of people involved into it. It is not a tomorrow, let's apply game.
Absolutely. So let's make this very practical. How would you apply it? Like, what is an approach that would make sense looking at the late stage development towards commercial manufacturing? Where should we start and what are some of the major steps?
We have been aiming to do small proof of concepts in where we see value out of it. And this is the typical small wins. Where can we show a little bit of value before we go into an end-to-end kind of massive platform of a digital twin? So we've been showing membrane falling, trying to detect early on how that operation is going to be affected based on input-output analytics. Resin life cycle kind of understanding. How is your loading decaying throughout the cycles by studying the skeleton of the resin itself? If you have actually a confident model, it doesn't have to be the most accurate polishing model, but if you can predict exactly what the outcome is going to be, during that processing phase, you can actually start adjusting your operation units. Okay, your membrane starting to point that you're going to have falling 3 or 4, 500 liters from now. So let me start adjusting my TMP to lower that potential falling happening. Or especially nowadays, you have a lot of continuous chromatography happening. those multi-column chromatography, they do follow this dynamic loading system to actually optimize the higher productivity. They also tend to be not accurate enough. So if you can promote this kind of more in-depth understanding of what's happening in the multi-column itself, you can actually start predicting your dynamic loads to be accurate to actually what you need to on your output model. So there's a lot of advantages, and your lifetime of that resin itself is going to be extended significantly. And that's where you see a little bit of value right now. Again, this is like little proof of concepts that we are trying to put together to continue migrating this technology. And the biggest goal that I want to bring the team together to operate is, I want to build an end-to-end model that can be leveraged into our facilities to design our process fit. So instead of doing the traditional mass balance facility fit, I want to bring that into place where I can actually create a more holistic scenario where any change in your process, if you start seeing a high molecular species growing, if you start seeing anything on that specific fed batch or continuous process, can we go back and already kind of immediately check where the problem is coming from? And have that more live control of the operation itself, so we don't have to wait for offline analytics. That is where I'm trying to go in the next round. But again, it's step by step, it's milestone by milestone. And this is a very complicated maturity level of a digital twin. We are still on this predictive scheme with a little bit of descriptive models. But once you get to the actually true mature digital twin, where you have a full automated response from the models and so on, we are still trying to get there, and we are trying to create a scenario where there's a true value out of it.
And what is the current, I'd say, acceptance as you speak with regulatory people, the closer you get to manufacturing? I know from my experience, this has been sometimes very challenging, but in the meantime, a lot of things have changed. The agencies have put a lot of effort into creating guidelines and pushing that forward. What is your perception now? How mature are these technologies for commercial manufacturing?
Excellent point. Regulatory is actually pushing for this. Regulatory are very open for that conversation. If you actually prepare a briefing package with ETT, they'll be there waiting for that conversation. They want the challenge. They want to make us better. They are the open door waiting for us to enter. The biggest challenges we have right now is actually aligning what type of platform we are bringing into the manufacturing space. And when I talk about platform, I'm talking about what type of digital twin software or packages we are bringing into place, how to validate that. And then another concept is, where is digital twin actually falling in terms of regulatory space? Is this an automated concept? Is just a part of an automation toolbox? Or is this actually the modeling concept? Because the fundamental part of the backbone of the digital twin is going to be still the model. So you have those two brackets of validation that you need to consider. Validate the models. Are those descriptive enough? Do they represent your process characterization scheme? Is this the design space validated as well? If they are, then what is the automation response to this? As an APC or MPC, how to actually control your operation based in a model base? Because you need to have accountability, how one can actually validate the other one. So at the manufacturing space, if you have a response coming from a model, because the model is truly validated, and is your automation truly validated, how to operate in this space. And there are some softwares that do come to the market nowadays that provide you that interface, but they are expensive. And as everything in this field, they come with fees, annual fees, there's the application fees, and okay, how much this is going to scale up if I start leveraging this into all manufacturing sites? So it comes that business case perspective as well. I think the hardest part is to justify exactly what's going to be our target implementation. And if you develop that internally, all by Python coding or other type of language, can you keep the maintenance of that type of language as well? So that's another type of cost that we don't normally think when you are in the development space.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of validation, I was just thinking about something else. To what extent can you actually validate AI? The more we include AI, can you really validate it? Because recently I did some tests with ChatGPT and Claude testing prompts, and sometimes the same prompt gives different results. So that's a big concern with respect to validation, right?
Yeah, that's why I don't think the cognitive digital twin is in the big picture yet. And I saw some of your podcasts where we talk about AI and applications. When it comes to AI-driven models, for example, you can leverage those models as much as you want. You can design as much models as you want based on AI. The validation of those models still fall in the same bracket as any other type of modeling. You still need to do the validation concept. You have to validate against large scale, in our case, then create EACs for small scale. You have to mimic the entire process characterization, and then you go on the edge failure mode kind of validation. The same principle. The output is the data. It's just massive amount of data. If it's validated in the lab wet work, that's okay. But then when it comes to apply AI in the machine learning into a live operation, there's no regulation yet. There's no actually, okay, this is how to do it, and this is how you need to prove it. So we are still trying to understand where the regulatory agencies will bring us to. They will have to create that scenario for us. We can't just come up with ideas ourselves and try to see it. They will be willing to actually understand what's our concept and how we think this is valuable or not. But until we get to that front door and we have that goal, okay, let's align in new form this kind of AI kind of application at the manufacturing, we still have some years ahead.
Yeah, definitely. There's still some years. So my question is then, how close are we to truly smart manufacturing, and what are the big gaps we're still facing?
I think I mentioned this before. The smart manufacturing requires a true platform. This is a difficult path to justify it still, even on the monoclonal antibody world. And then getting to that through smart manufacturing, I think we are about maybe 15 years behind. This is looking at other industries and how long it took of them, like the car and oil industries, how long it took them to have a full automated system. So we are still trying to make this fully automated. And then we'll have that digital twin and the gaps filled by digital twins where we cannot have that real-time test release, or at least monitoring our product with product quality methods throughout the entire cycles of operation. So there's a lot to be done there. And if you think about it, after you do all of this, you still have that closed system operation that it's the ideal scenario where you have minimal interface of people. So yeah, we have so many milestones to actually break through. And when all of that comes close, then you have to start thinking, okay, how can I do plug and play concepts? How do I start a process design based on the molecular understanding? Can I put my sequence in the software? Okay, predict what is my end-to-end process here. That's going to be like way ahead of us. But I think that's going to be the future. That concept is there. Everyone has that in mind. This has to happen one day. Now, is that a reality? Is going to be exactly as we imagine right now? Maybe not. Maybe it's going to be slightly different. As we mentioned, these new tools are changing the way we think about things. And they are changing the way we develop processes. So maybe that's manufacturing that we have as of now based on Industry 4.0 with a little bit more closed-loop operations and so on. They probably will be different in 10 years from now. But I think we are still quite behind. 15 years, maybe potentially 20 years from now, we start seeing some hints of that.
And that's where we'll pause our fascinating conversation with Tiago Matos. Join us next time as we continue exploring how digital twins and smart manufacturing are transforming biologics production with practical insights you can implement today. Remember, science may give you headaches, but biologics drug development should not. Before we wrap up, I'd like to offer you a free consultation to discuss any challenges you might have in your CMC strategy. Whether you're struggling with process development, scale-up, or implementing digital solutions, I'm here to help. Book a free call with me. The link is in the episode description. See you in part 2. All right, smart scientists. That's all for today on the Smart Biotech Scientist podcast. Thank you for tuning in and joining us on your journey to bioprocess mastery. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. By doing so, we can empower more scientists like you. For additional bioprocessing tips, visit us at smartbiotechscientist.com. Stay tuned for more inspiring biotech insights in our next episode. Until then, let's continue to smarten up biotech.